Let's start with the value of discussions. So in this slide, we have a list which is by no means exhaustive, but does give some of the more common reasons why faculty value discussions. We know that discussions, when done well, will move students away from being a passive recipient of information to becoming an active participant in their own learning. Discussions will encourage students to think and act in the manner and language of the discipline, helping them formulate their ideas and communicate them clearly. It also really encourages students to not just hear what others have to say, but to become respectful and attentive in their listening. And in doing so, that will introduce students to multiple perspectives, multiple ways of looking at problems or issues, and encourages them to maybe become more aware of the complexity of a topic than they otherwise might have been. In doing this, that also will help them and us to consider our own biases, our own assumptions, and also try to consider other people's as well, and how all of this informs how we think about a particular problem or situation. And last but not least, good discussions really help students to learn more, to integrate and synthesize new information into their existing knowledge base. So even though we see the value of discussions, students often have concerns. Again, not an exhaustive list, but commonly, students often worry about feeling embarrassed. And some tell us that they really need time to think and process before they speak. They hate the idea of being put on the spot. They worry about what faculty and their peers will think if they say something that others perceive as incorrect. Likewise, they worry about how they'll be perceived if they're the only one who disagrees with what is otherwise, seems to them at least, a pretty strong consensus. Some come from backgrounds where they are not comfortable challenging authority figures, or they just might have a temperament where they're not really comfortable challenging anyone in particular. Some are concerned that they haven't finished, or more commonly haven't understood particular aspects of the reading, and that in being asked to discuss aspects of the reading, that's going to become obvious to everyone, which again will embarrass them rather than help them learn. Some students, by means of temperament, really would like to contribute but don't know how to get into the conversation, and by the time they manage to do so, other people have perhaps said what they had hoped to say. And others, by virtue of the fact that they are passionate, enthusiastic, sometimes they feel that they are filling a gap that otherwise might be uncomfortable. They end up speaking and dominating, and then they worry about that afterwards. And this one comes up not uncommonly in student evaluations, where a lot of students will actually say they feel that discussions are a waste of time and money. They will talk about how they went into breakout groups. Other students in the group hadn't done the readings, so they all played games on their phones. They all came back to the class eventually, but there was no follow-up. And they wonder, why am I listening to what other people think, even if they had prepared for the discussion? I'm not interested in their opinions. I want to hear from what I perceive to be the expert, so I only am interested in what the faculty have to say. faculty, while also knowing the value of discussions, are aware that when we are giving a more traditional type of lecture, we can control the focus of the content, we can control the pace of the class, and that when we move into a discussion, we actually are risking losing some control over the way in which the class or the discussion will unfold. We worry about whether our students are prepared, whether they will go off track and how we'll get them back on. We worry that they will share misleading or incorrect information. Worse, they might say something that intentionally or unintentionally is offensive in some way. Even if none of that happens, we are often aware that no matter how large the class, between 5 and 8 students are going to control about 75% of the talking, and we would like all voices to be included. So how do we do that? And then to address some of our students' concerns, we really want to help our students see and value discussion as both a learning tool and as a transferable skill. And finally, we often have no idea what type of discussion approach would work best for us. A lot of these topics are actually very complex and quite nuanced and worthy of their own workshop or their own discussion session.